So, Jana, I'm curious. Have you heard of the work of T.V. Raman? Uh, Dates
Yes, I
back
have.
many years.
Yes, I'm familiar with that name. Uh-huh.
Is that still considered current work?
I don't, that's a really good question. I do not know the answer to that. There's something that people are talking a lot about called Quorum. Are you familiar with that? It's a programming language that somebody came up with that they're saying is easier for blind people to learn. So you learn it sort of as a foot in the door. And there are some tutorials on the web that I'm going to be looking into, but that's one thing. And but then there are like people who say that's not really a good way to do it because it's not a language that's really used, if you want to get employment or something like that. But um, but I'm not, I mean, I'm very vaguely familiar with Raman's work. So you might fill me in a little bit, but I know I've heard his name and that he was connected with computer and math um, accessibility stuff.
Indeed, and it occurs to me because this is this was my learning experience in how computers show up for the visually impaired. Um, he worked out ways of trying to get the computer to show him math, and it wasn't easy, and he had to be very creative and very energetic. And I know that computer programming is a separate discipline, but it occurs to me that you probably could help us understand your experience by how do you get the computer to tell you what it's doing, as it were, while you're programming?
Well, that's difficult, and I'm not. The other thing I should say is that I've gotten not far enough to really be able to answer that well. Like a lot of professional, coders could answer it much better than I because I've been doing very simple things. But what I can say about that is I have been using Visual Studio, which is very accessible for what it is. I mean, Microsoft has made it accessible, but at the same time, um, you have to do a lot of, you have to know a bunch of keyboard commands to get it to tell you all the things that a sighted person can see automatically. They use a lot of colors and underlining and things to say like, this is an error, or this is a method, or this is a, like just the various kinds of statements and arguments it could be and things like that. And um, so what I found is that it takes a lot more energy. You can get a lot of that information, but you have to, uh, it's almost like you have to come up with a real work sort of flow to figure out how to do that. I think it's something that if you did it enough, you would work out like a bunch of keystrokes that you would do to like, this is when I need to know this thing, and this is when I need to know that thing. And that's part of what I think some more experienced people could help us, could help. And I've talked to a number of people who are willing to help with the project who are professional coders. And I think, I think one of the issues has been that a lot of blind people who are learning, everybody develops their own system. And to some extent, that's true. Everybody is going to have to do their own system. But at the same time, I feel like there could be benefit from trying to come up with some, like, here's a good place to start. Here's something that most people do. And that doesn't really exist beyond some pretty basic tips and tricks for doing things. But like, and then when you get into more graphics and like visualizing how, decision trees are and things like that, I don't even know how people navigate that kind of thing.
We have a hand up from Kelly Johnson. Kelly and Jana, are you meeting for the first time?
I believe so.
Yes.
Okay, great. So a quick introduction is I am a stock assessment scientist in NOAA working for the US federal government. And I'm a coder and I'm trying to make our output more accessible to those disabilities. And I'm not a computer scientist, but I'm trying to muck my way through it. And while listening to you, I first want to say thank you for sharing your experience. It's really great to learn more about how users interact with both the output and the input to what we're attempting to do. And I wanted to ask you a question about, I have a friend that codes that has a different kind of disability than sight. He lost the ability to type, and so he uses voice coding. And so I was wondering if like knowledge about that would be helpful, given that there's probably ways that he interacts with the computer that's different than us that, you know, types code out. And so a lot of stuff is read back to him.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's really fascinating to know that people do that. And that's not something I have heard any blind people talking about. Most people, because blind people are really tend to be proficient typists, you know, it's kind of like, oh, well, I can do my own typing better than, you know, than that. And I think that would be a question, like, is it robust enough that you can enter a lot of stuff without having to go back and like if you could see but you couldn't type, you might be able to quickly look and see there's like a brace missing or there's this or that. Whereas for a blind person, it might take more time to go back through and make sure there weren't little mistakes than it would be for us to just type. But on the other hand, I think that it might be something that would speed things up and make it easier, especially if you could kind of even tell it things like, you know, and I don't know if you could do this, but like, you know, be like, oh, this is a, you know, this is my method coming up. This is my test, you know, I mean, that it would like kind of help format it for you based on what it thought you were doing or what you told it you were doing.
Great, thanks for the comments on that. And I'll try to, or I'll send him an email and try to round up where he found his resources to learn the method that he has, because I think at a bare minimum, just knowing where that documentation exists could be helpful.
Absolutely, thank you.
I'm going to step in and ask for assistance from the group here because I have a recollection of being joined by a visually impaired professor from, was it New Zealand, on the tech hour. And this is, okay, so Kelly's saying Australia. This is why I'm asking for help, because I had never met this person before. But I know that people here might be able to help Jana get in touch, get these two people in touch with each other. And he has had many years of experience working as an instructor with students, notwithstanding his visual impairment.
He was teaching statistics, right?
I believe
yeah.
said.
His name is Jonathan Godfrey, and he's a regular on the blind math list, and he's in New Zealand, and he uses R a great deal, which is a great help for him. And I think his choice of career was very much guided by the accessibility of various tools and subjects. So he was sort of fortunate in what was available and in the choices he made. He's a nice chap. The video is available on the Tech Hour channel as well.
I'll look for that. Thank you.
Well, that's great. It's delights me to connect people up, and I hope that there will be an opportunity for those of us who see ourselves as allies to somehow have a presence within your effort, Jana.
Thank you.